Hello and welcome back to Amazon Studios. I'm Hara Gavriliade and I'm here with my co-host Dwayne Brown. And today we have Didier Roekaerts with us. Welcome, Didier.
Welcome to Amazon Studios, man.
Thank you both. It's my pleasure.
How are you feeling being here with us?
Oh, wow. I'm amazed by the new office. It's quite something when you first enter and you see the scale of it, and then the studio. It's very humbling. So I'm very excited to be here. Also, the people who walk around, you can really feel the buzz. It's really cool.
It's one of the more exciting offices that we've got, I think.
Yeah, I know. I come here like once per week just to feel the buzz, you know.
Yeah, I may do that from now on as well.
Just
let somebody downstairs know.
Let me know, yeah. Let me know and we can go from here. Definitely.
I think we should let the audience know that, so we have been getting ourselves into chat earlier, and Didier's got the most amazing stories, all sorts, all variations. It's really good and entertaining time with you, I must admit.
Yeah, I'm excited, like what stories we're going to talk about today. I have no idea. Do we need to do like boop or not? But yeah, we'll see.
Let's freestyle it, and please don't Andrew Tate me.
Well, okay, so shall I just stop the fun then and kick us off with like a question that has been on my mind for a while?
Let's do it.
All right. I've been thinking about this a lot, and we've been talking about brands. Of course, we're talking about customer experience, consumer experience. What has been on my mind recently is, do brands or organizations, companies, I will use these terms interchangeably, are still trying to be empathetic with consumers, or this is done now, this is not what they care about, and they just want to offer a service or a product?
No, I think this is probably the point in history where empathy is more important than ever. It's what consumers expect. Consumers don't want to buy random products. They want to be part of an experience, part of a family. They want to be immersive. And there is a real arms race going on between brands. And how do I find my consumer, my champion for my brand? And how do I create the empathy where they truly believe that I connect with them, that I'm not just pushing a product, but that we are of the same kin, we have the same goal, the same mindset. And a lot of this is driven by understanding consumers better, listening to the data, really trying to figure out, it's like, I am not pushing a product. I am actually promoting a lifestyle, an experience. And the products are just a way, a vehicle to do it, but it's much more about it. And consumers reciprocate. If they buy into that empathy, they become very loyal. But if they don't buy into that empathy, as we've seen with some brands who took a gamble, they switch off from the brand and it backfires, and it can ultimately lead to consumers even boycotting the brand if they say, you have betrayed us. And that's literally the word they have used.
I like to challenge that. So I agree with you in general, and I'm a big advocate of that, customer centricity more broadly. There's some that would say that it isn't applicable to all industries, certain types of business models don't lend themselves that well to a customer-centric approach. What do you say to them, if you think about, I don't know, some forms of entertainment, for example? Can you still take a customer-centric approach to those brands, or is it?
Yeah, definitely. So when a lot of the time people always say, we want to be like Netflix. And I always say, yeah, but Netflix is easy. You have one product, which is content. You have one channel. You have primary consumer data from the start. You can tailor the content, and you really control every single aspect. Now, if you take a consumer goods company, they share the fact that they very often have high engagement products. People really genuinely feel strongly about the beauty products they make, and not even the high-end luxury. This can go to shampoo, this can go to toothpaste. This can go to food, beverages, alcoholic beverages, very high engagement categories, but they do not have that luxury of having access to that data. Very often they have to work through the retailer. Very often they try to do direct to consumer, but it's a small part of their business, and the scale in which they have to do it with thousands, hundreds of thousands of SKUs in different markets, different distribution channels. If you look at China or India, there are 7 layers of distributors. So by the time your product gets to the consumer consumer may have dealt with 7 instances that are not on your payroll. So the engagement is there, but the ability to act on it and to deliver on that engagement is much, much, much harder for a consumer goods company than, say, for a pure play digital or for an airline or a travel company that deals directly with the consumer.
Yeah. You had these declarations of, DTC, direct to consumer declarations, kind of early 2010s, 2015, 2017. And I guess, and keep me honest here, but I get the impression, I guess, for larger brands, I guess that's the point I'm trying to make. No, for the larger kind of CPG brands, it's much harder for them to actually establish points on the journey for customers to engage with, really, and to shift those kind of individual brands that they've got to some kind of, direct touch point.
Yeah, very true. It was really fashionable. About a decade ago, everybody wanted to do D2C. It was a new thing. We can now. It's like, oh my God, we're going to compete with Amazon. We're going to give them a run for their money. And then they realized that it's not that easy, that it's actually incredibly expensive. You have to have a distribution network, logistics centers, warehouses. And on top of that, when you have millions of consumers placing orders for, if you're in a low-cost category, for 3, 5, 6 euros, it doesn't become very profitable to start shipping them. So then you're dealing with partners, which makes it, again, harder to cut the cost, harder to get to the consumer. So although there was a dream, and in essence, the dream is still alive, what they realized very quickly, unless it's a luxury or an expensive product where every shipment makes sense. So if I buy a $300 perfume, okay, I get it, it's worth shipping. But if you basically buy toilet paper and cleaning products online, and that's all you buy, like 1 tube of cleaning product, it's not so lucrative, and it becomes a lot harder to do. And the retailer has the benefit because they have a plethora, they have an assortment that spans across everything. You're just one shelf. And to expand that shelf and go and do it yourself is not that easy, as a lot have realized. And they've tried, don't get me wrong. If we look at Unilever, they said if we buy a company like the Dollar Shave Club, maybe we can do it because it was subscription-based. So then, that's the solution, subscription-based. They then bought Grace, again, subscription-based. But again, in reality, in hindsight, it wasn't the best strategy for them.
Yeah. And was the thinking back then, you think, that they would start with Dollar Shave Club and then they would slowly onboard other brands that were more traditional?
Correct. It would become like the template where they would hope, if we want consistency and continuity, we need to get into that subscription model. And again, I'll use, this is so funny, all these Amazon examples pop up. Mars has pet food, and pet food is a brilliant category. It's very predictable. You literally have a pet that lives, say, a decade, and from birth until the pet passes away, you need pet food at very regular intervals. It's easy to package, it's easy to ship. Obviously, Mars worked very closely with Amazon, and Amazon was thinking like, suckers, I'm just gonna take the category and I can do this myself. Because for me, that's exactly the kind of business that works in D2C. So that's an example but then Mars is not just about pet food, Mars is also about other food and confectionery. So again, if you then want to span it across the whole category, it becomes a bit more complicated.
I wonder, I wonder if we should just go back, and I like to take the audience back for those of us watching who might not be as clued up in consumer goods in general. Yeah. What's it like to take a product to market, like to come up with a flavor of Coca-Cola, for example?
Thanks for doing that, because I wanted to bring us back just to ensure that that's your specialty, consumer goods. And I was just telling you before that I was fascinated by the stories and also the insights that we've been through our conversations the last weeks.
Yes.
And I want these messages to come out for our audience as well.
Okay, so maybe I'll rewind a little bit. Yes, I've spent my entire life working in consumer goods as a consultant and also as a practitioner. And I discovered data and analytics somewhere on the way where I said, wow, this is going to change the game. Because before we had all of these gut feeling things, and I still remember the ancient relics saying like, everybody knows Chinese people don't eat cheese. Or things like, it doesn't matter what you put in pet food because nobody's going to taste it. We also learned that we put vegetables into cat food. Cats don't care. They only eat meat and grass. But the human likes it. It's like, oh, look, there's a little bit of broccoli and a bit of carrot in it. So I'm going to spend more money on Shiba because it looks premium and I want the best for my cat, because actually I don't have a child, I have a cat. And the cat is my child. I'm no longer a pet owner, I'm a pet parent. And so I think my science has been, how do I understand consumer behavior and how do we help brands to deliver on the experience that those consumers really crave, that then will drive the behavior of, I will buy your brand again, I will try other things. When you make a little mistake, I will forgive you, and God, I will defend you. I will go online, I will tell other people how amazing you are. And that's the dream. So everybody will always say we need to put the consumer at the heart of what we do. But in reality, in a consumer goods company, that is not easy. So taking it to the flavor model, you want to delight your consumers. You genuinely want to give them something new. And on paper, that looks incredibly easy. In reality, you have to do tons and tons of research. So it starts with what are the possible combinations. You have to go through all the regulations. You have to see that it makes financial sense. And then you have to test it. You have to test whether people like it, the flavor, the color, the packaging. And then you launch it. And even when that happens, sometimes you still get it horribly wrong. And when I had the intense privilege to be part of an organization that had the brand Lucozade, which was an energy drink, much like Red Bull, Earn Brew, and all of the sites, they were experimenting with flavors. So they had lemonade, then they said, let's do melonade, melon, funny, melonade, people didn't like it that much. Let's do a tropical, that was popular. Let's do a Coca-Cola version, ooh, not good, nobody touches the holy Coca-Cola. Virgin tried it as well, big fail, don't touch Coke. And then by a miracle, they came up with pink lemonade. It was fun. Now, that in itself didn't necessarily build the success of the brand. Those were the early days of social media. So there was a lady, and she made my career at that time. I will never forget her name, and her name was Eleanor Leiper. You're now going to say, who is she? Well, I was thinking the same thing. But when we were pulling the lemonade, the pink one, because it was expired, it was in and out strategy, she said, oh, dear Lucozade, don't take away the pink one. That went viral to the extent that we didn't know what viral was at the time, but it was viral. She was the girlfriend of one of the boys of One Direction. So they all retweeted, don't take away the pink one. So the Lucozade brand team immediately sent her a basket with the whole pink range and said, of course not. We're not going to take them. So the limited edition was thrown away, and that went boom. So using that data at the right time, engaging with an audience that already liked the brand, amplifying it, made that category into something that it wasn't before. All of a sudden, it became the cool kid. Now, was this art, was this science? I think it's always a little bit of a combination of both, being at the right time, at the right place. Sometimes people are very conscious about it. So an example I really love is Fever Tree. So when you go to a pub 10 years ago, no, let's say 20 years ago, and you say, I would like to have a gin and tonic, people would say like, sure. And which gin would you like? Tanqueray, Bombay, Saphir, Hendrix. Today, they will ask the same question, and then they will ask a follow-up question. Which tonic would you like? Yeah. And you get a whole range of Fever Tree. So they created an occasion where they said, if you're willing to pay for a premium gin, why are you not paying for a premium tonic? Yeah. They put the two together, magic. So that was very clever of thinking like, how would my consumer want to experience? And I believe, Dwayne, you told me that you emptied your grandmother's liquor cabinet thanks to Fever Tree.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's a lovely vehicle for forgotten alcoholic beverages in people's cupboards, actually. So funny that you mentioned that, that you remember it.
Yeah.
I was wondering if there is, if you talk about art and science, when you talk about kind of creating a product, I wanted to work out how those CPG brands work out where to play. Like, you know, is it that they go, okay, well, we serve a specific beverage or a specific product to, you know, ABC ones in Bah country or Bah region, and therefore, but there's an underserved audience over here. They have nothing, but they would drink this thing if it had. Is that the kind of like calculations that go on?
Yes. So so if I look at the consumer goods industry, most will work with the consumer, and they will segment the consumers and will say that type of consumer epitomizes a healthy lifestyle, natural product. So I kind of know which range to bring. When you specifically go in the food and the beverages companies, they focus a little bit less on the consumer and a lot more on the occasion. Because let's frank it, if you like a beer, and I would label you as a beer drinker, it's not like you wake up and you have cornflakes with beer for breakfast, then you have a beer at lunch, then you have a beer in the evening. No, depending on the occasion, when you go out with your friends and it's just going to the pub, you may have a beer. When you take your wife out for dinner, you may have a glass of wine. And when you're playing poker with your more sophisticated friends, you have a glass of whiskey. So very quickly, they realized the occasion determines the category. However, if we want to take over a part of that occasion, we need to launch a product that can compete. So if the occasion called for spirits, we had spirits fighters. If it was CSD, which is carbonated soft drinks, we had CSD fighters. If it was wine, we had wine fighters. It was just a way of trying to find a way into the occasion by offering an alternative, where people would say, like, typically I would drink a Coca-Cola, but today I feel like drinking an alcohol-free beer, or maybe a shandy, which tastes a bit more lemonade-y. And that's how you decide with which product you're going to address which occasion, and that differs tremendously by market. So if you look at the world, when the GDP is under a certain level, it's mainly beer. As the GDP goes up, wine enters the occasion, spirits enters the occasion. So you need different ranges, different sophistications, different premiumization ladders for the products you're offering in that occasion. Also culturally, it's very different as well. There are just, as we all know, there are cultures where they drink more wine, and I'm going to be very stereotypical here, so I'm not allowed to do that. But so you would say in France, people are more likely to drink wine. In Poland, people are more likely to drink beer. In Colombia, people are more likely to drink aguardiente. And in the Bahamas, people will drink rum. And to a large extent, that's true. And that's also something that you localize every strategy for every market. But for simplicity's sake, the consumer will kind of dominate. And what brands very often do to create that experience, I always say that the first job is, do you know who your consumer is?
I wanted to untap a little bit this, because I was thinking, that's a dilemma in my head. Do brands try to change themselves to meet the consumer expectations? And I know that consumers' preference needs are changing over time, and specifically now they are more, I guess, demanding than before, right? Than ever. Or they're trying to influence them, or is a fine balance that there's a dance there, as I like calling it, between adaptation and influence?
It's a cat and mouse game. It's constantly evolving, and there are literally trends where people have been beaten up and they say, ooh, we didn't listen to our consumers, we better listen. And then there are other moments when people are bolder and they say, like, let's experiment. But the first mistake that people make in consumer experiences, they don't know who their consumer is. They have an aspirational target consumer. I will not name brands now because I can say bad things, but a lot of energy drinks will always say, my consumer is an athlete, a marathon runner, somebody who spends a lot of time in the gym and needs the energy. But the reality is, they may be builders who have an energy drink for lunch with a bag of crisps to get some more energy to do the afternoon of building. It may be a mom pushing a pram who was up half of the night because baby was crying and said, I need a little bit of energy. That is your real consumer. Yeah. Now, are you going to double down, which is option one, or are you going to take the brand to a different consumer? And sometimes they experiment. And now I will name some brands because people may identify with it. So if we look at leisure wear or athletics wear, you would have Nike, who first focused on runners. Like, very clever strategy. They were runners themselves. They say, if 2 billion people on planet Earth call themselves runners, we have an audience. Double down on this, evolved to other sports. And the latest wave was, we actually want everybody to be fit. So we have a body positivity image. It doesn't matter which shape or form you are. You can wear Nike. Yesterday you said tomorrow, just do it. Get out there, run. Now, that is juxtaposed to, say, Lululemon. We all know Lululemon, and Lululemon, I've never seen anybody wear Lululemon who didn't look like the Lululemon model. And the philosophy there is you first get fit, you look amazing, you feel amazing, and then you go into the store and you buy Lululemon as a reward and you wear it with pride, and you've earned a Lululemon. Now, both of those are correct because they understood the target consumer. Now, what you sometimes see is a brand, and let's take Victoria's Secret, who was very much on the Lululemon side. We're going to double down on people who are at the prime of their beauty. And then they said, let's now go Nike and take a body positivity image and start working with plus size models. That backfired for that brand because their target audience says, we don't find that aspirational, that's not what we identify with. So they had to pipe it down a little bit. If you get it completely wrong, that's what happened to a well-known beer brand who had a white male dominant audience that was very conservative and decided to your point, Hara, to say, let's change the consumer behavior abruptly and rapidly by introducing an ambassador who is transgender. And that audience rejected it and boycotted the brand, where you could say it was a very bold try. Sometimes these things really work, and sometimes they don't.
But if I were to summarize what you just said to me, it's also you're saying the cost to experiment is expensive. Is that unfair?
No, it's very expensive. To get it wrong costs money.
I always wanted this. So like, so originally from Barbados, and Barbados is a little bit of an interesting beast in that sometimes you get products from the States because people visit the States and they bring them there. But kind of when I was growing up, started to kind of establish these trade links with South America because we're close to South America, right? So you get different types of Oreos.
Oh yeah. You told me about this. Yeah,
right. And I always liked the North American Oreos, and I could taste the difference slightly. And I hated the South American Oreos, even if the package is exactly the same. There wasn't any Spanish or Portuguese on it. I could tell the difference. And I was wondering if it went something like this. So keep me honest. It went something like, oh, well, we want to match the taste of people in Northern Latin America, and therefore we're going to experiment with these ingredients, which is slightly different from the original Oreos. Oh, they like it. Oh, we're going to stick to that. Is it like that, or is it more opportunistic? Or is it?
It's not as exotic sometimes. So in the beverage industry, especially in beer, everything is always brewed locally as much as possible, and you will take into consideration people's palate. So in Latin America, people like beers who have less carbonation and a lower bitterness, whilst in Europe, people like a higher bitterness and more carbonation. So that's something tobacco industries have done it for centuries, so to speak. A packet of Marlboro would taste different in different parts of the world. That's the exotic way of describing it. Sometimes it's practicality. So everybody will tell you who has ever had the honor and privilege to work with the Coca-Cola company that Coca-Cola with cane sugar tastes like 10 times better than Coca-Cola with beet sugar. So if you go to El Salvador and you drink a Coca-Cola, you think this is the nectar of the gods. And they use cane sugar. Whilst here we use beet sugar because we can't grow sugar cane, the climate is wrong. So, and it's too expensive to make everything cane or everything beet. So as a result, you have different flavored Coca-Cola. It's a production reason for that. Because sourcing locally in the world of sustainability, in keeping the cost down for the consumer, also makes sense. So if something is there, it makes sense. And I've had like massive failures myself in that respect to not respect it. We had cider, which was doing phenomenally well in Europe. So everybody loved cider. There was like a cider boom. So it's like, Latin America will love cider. They hated it. And we did the research afterwards. It was a costly affair. And the reason why was they don't have apples in Latin America. They don't grow. The only apple they knew was Snow White, and they thought if you eat it, you die. So if we had made mango flavored beer, it would have. Ultimately, we made chocolate flavored beer,
right? Okay,
which worked.
I want to unpack what you said. We did the research afterwards, And I want to link this to what we were discussing before about the different customers and their preferences and how they associate with themselves with the brand or something. So how do consumer goods companies, because I don't think they're built directly for consumers, right? There is always the retail in the middle. Am I wrong here?
The brand is targeted at the consumer. So the retailer is the person who will get it to the consumer. But when you design, you look at the consumer. And the retailer will stock it and sell it if the consumer wants it.
All right. So in terms of like data, like the customer data, like consumer data or research that you said,
yes.
How do the CPG companies use them to create the products for the consumers? Is what I'm trying to say is is data a big thing? Do they have challenges in the industry?
It's massive. So in the not so recent past, the way people went about it was to do field work. So you would literally go out and ask people with lengthy questionnaires, weight the data, and then you would freeze that data and assume nothing would change for a period of 3 years. Now today it's a completely different ball game. One of my former colleagues once said, people really put their lives out there, referring to social media. So we now have people who engage on a variety of platforms, who do a lot of searching online, and all of that data, who pay digitally for what they buy, all of that data we scrape, we hoover up, and we really start to get a feeling of who those people are and what they are looking for. And what they are looking for from a functional point of view, for example, I have sensitive teeth, I have dry skin, I have a sore throat, but also from an emotional point of view. When I use this, I want people to look at me and think I'm beautiful. I want to be sophisticated. I want to be premium. And all of those cues we can now absorb. And with the possibilities we have today, very quickly we can use that data to make new products. And we can make products that are very, very personalized to the segment of consumers we're trying to reach. And then the rest of it is prototyping. Again, you can do a lot of that digitally. And subsequently testing, and then we ask questions such as how much would you willing to pay for it, etc.
Okay.
I did want to touch on personalization because the few conversations I've had with CPG brands and different workshops, that was a theme that came up. The challenge I had with it though is it's one of those things that it's very dependent on high touch relationships. You get better personalization with high touch relationships. It's not mandatory, but it does get better, especially if you want it to change and evolve over time as they get to know you better and that type of thing. How is that different? How are you factoring in that lack of touch to get the personalization right?
So personalization is a bit of the buzzword at the moment. Well, it's been for a while, and now it's hyper personalization or micro personalization. I mean, personalization until the cows come home. And I always look at, on one hand, you have content. Yes, I get it. It makes sense. You want to personalize content. I want to engage with you in a language you like. I want to offer you the products I know you will like. But then there is product personalization, and that's a little bit more complicated. Let me give you a few anecdotes. So one is you can have the Coca-Cola bottle and you can say oh, you can put your name on it. Instead of Coca-Cola, it says Dwayne. That's one thing of personalization. It's not going to push the needle very far. Then you had Nike ID, where Nike says you can personalize your sneakers. First they set from a fixed set of patterns, and now you can just freestyle. You can make your own design. Again, it's fun. You have then got companies like Brompton Bicycle, who say we cannot do this. We cannot make any bike you want, but we're going to ask you fun questions. It's hey, what's your style of riding? Do you go uphill, downhill a lot? Do you want to go really fast? Do you want to go smooth? And they will say you need this saddle, this steering wheel, an electric versus a non-electric. So it's semi-personalization. The ones where they're really going overboard now is in supplements and nutrition. And that's really worth it, because then they can say, if you give us access to your data, your skin type, your gut health, whatever it is you want to cure, we will personalize a VDS, vitamin and dietary supplement package just for you. That's becoming even more relevant now with the current addiction of people to things like Ozempic. It's great, I take the slimming drug, but it also reduces my muscles, and it brings a whole heap of complications. So now there's companies who say like, well, we have an Ozempic package to supplement you, so you're losing too much muscle. Oh, we've got the right package for you. And that is a level of personalization that's actually very interesting, because it forces you as a consumer to willingly share data, but to share data on such a personal level that as a brand, you can really do something with it.
I wanted to touch on this because you talk about what is important, right, for a consumer, and a consumer has, like, I call it a consumer journey. Buying a product, there must be a challenge after the purchase, and then you talk about, like, the consumers give you lots of information, right, through like customer care or the customer service. Is the industry, like the CPG industry, how do they identify these moments that are important? We call them moments that matter, right?
Yes.
And do they use that? This is what you are describing so far. Like, do they use that back to how they can create that? Because you're talking about categories of products, right? Or sub-categories of products. So how does this happen?
So here we are literally witnessing a revolution in consumer care. And especially when you look at consumer journeys, what people are realizing is twofold. One is the consumer journey has fundamentally changed. It's become much more complicated and much more controllable. In the past, you see an ad on TV, first moment of truth, you go in the shop, you buy it, second moment of truth, you try it, it works, third moment of truth. That was the 3 moments of truth from Procter & Gamble. Today, you see something in an app or on TikTok, you go on Google, you research it, you look on Amazon, you read some of the reviews, you go into a store, you touch it, and then maybe you buy it, God knows, either in store, either online, who knows. You try it, you like it, you post something nice on Trustpilot, you hate it, you blast it all over your Instagram. And all of those moments now...
So true. That's so true.
You need to control the moments. And it becomes overwhelming because you are not in control. So what we, for instance, saw with a tobacco company, they've all of a sudden moved from a very simple product, which is cigarettes, everybody knows how they work, to very sophisticated products such as devices, vaping devices, heated tobacco devices, which the consumer needs to understand. There is a high level of education before you enter that category, and they spend time on Google researching. Now, what do you think? The tobacco companies were hoping if they search for that device, they will automatically come to my website and I can educate them properly. But they will not. The top 5 websites are the NHS, the Mayo Clinic, some influencer, and they will tell things that as a brand, you say that's not true. We disagree with that, but you're not in control of the narrative. So although it's a moment that matter, is it a moment to fight for? Is that a moment you can control? Possibly not. However, if they go into a store, a vape store, that is a moment that matters too. You come there, it's like, which is the right one for me? Now, if you work with the bud tender, it's the person serving you or your vape assistant, and you help them choose your brand because you really worked with them, that's a moment that matters, that you can control. When you use the device and it doesn't work, and the consumer calls, there's a leakage, it stopped where it doesn't charge, again, you can control that moment. You can really own it. The after-sales care is incredibly important in this category. And what we then see is the second problem is, how do you measure it? And the only thing that most people use is Net Promoter Score, or NPS. And the NPS, it's always kind of funny. It's one line. It's like, would you recommend it to somebody else? Well, that doesn't give me a lot of information. And you measure it across the journey. And we all know that if you make a mistake across any of the moments in the journey, people will judge you for the whole journey.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
yes.
Sir, yes.
So, like, great, it breaks. I hate you.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you mentioned that, so you made me think about something. So you talked about brands that have essentially kind of shifted what they sell has become a little bit more complicated. And I guess there's no support aspect to it. It made me think about, CPG brands who have successfully established D2C, sites, engagements with customers, and they know how to think about support. So, like, what is support like? What's customer care like in that space?
Yes. So I will take two digital native companies. And I will explain you the experience. Let's start with Amazon. I order something from Amazon and there is something wrong with it. I go on Amazon, I click one button. It says, how do you want to get in touch? You want to talk to somebody? You want to chat to somebody? I click on chat. Hi, is this your order? Yes. Wow, I didn't have to do anything. Well, how can I help? It broke. No problem. You want a new one or you want your money back? It's fine. We've already refunded you. What about you can keep it. We'll send you another one as well. You walk away smiling like, I won. Now, I'll take the competitor. In Belgium, we have bol.com. And it happened for real. I order an expensive pair of headphones for my daughter. It breaks after a month. I tried to get in touch, took a while.
Bol.com's fault, but it just happened to be.
It just happened to be one of the products. But their customer service was, nah, you've probably used them wrong. What have you done? So I get literally a Spanish Inquisition of how dumb I possibly must be. And I said, look, they're really, really broken. No, we don't believe you. You send them back to us and we will evaluate them. How? Well, here's an address. So I had to pay for it myself. I posted back to them. They took their fair 3 weeks and then they let me know, yeah, you were right, they're broken. I'm like, okay, thank you. Can I get a new pair? No, we don't have them anymore. Can I get a refund then? Yeah, sure. Do you want it on your bank account or you want it on the credit card you paid with? I said, I would prefer it on my bank account because I don't have that credit card anymore. Okay, nothing arrives back. So I called them again after 2 weeks. Again, I go through the Spanish Inquisition. You're an idiot. You don't know how to read your bank statement. And I say it, and it's like, well, of course, we've posted it back to your credit card. I said, but I asked for a bank. No. That's not how it works. We always refund you the same way you ordered it. Contact your credit card company. Now, I finally got my money back, and I bought exactly the same pair of earphones at Amazon. And there's a reason for that. So that's the two extremes. And they are digital companies. So I'm not here saying you have Amazon who is up here and you have a very traditional manufacturing company who is still getting to grips with the digital world. No, these are two digital native companies and still the discrepancies are enormous.
You did there. So what you're saying, because we often get criticized for that, right? In that, people say, well, actually, you know what? You don't have the legacy to overcome. Necessarily, right? And therefore, there's not the oodles of, different ways of working, older systems and everything like that that you need to change in order to get customer service right.
Which they do, because they were geared to do what we call after sales support, which is you get in touch with us. We don't get in touch with you ever. When you get in touch with us, it's usually because something went wrong. Or you have a question, I don't know how it works, or you're angry, it didn't work the way I was expecting it to work.
I get frustrated when sorry, Harry.
No, go ahead.
I get frustrated when you get like the DIY, you could set up this thing at home, right? All you gotta do is just ... And then you do it, and then you do something slightly to the left and right of what they've got in the app or whatever,
not working.
You're busted. And there is nobody to call. Then you look, and it's like, oh, well, did you check Reddit? It's like, well, I gotta just dive into the forums.
We have a name for those. We call that digital IKEA.
Oh gosh.
We call them customer care requests. Right? You went to a customer care request with your headphones, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
I wanted to go back to that customer care, customer service question, right? Sorry to break the fun, but why is that? Is this what you mentioned before? Is like a systemic underinvestment into customer care because we focus more on product development or sales or marketing? Now you're talking like on D2C, right? Yeah. How we can break that area rather than going back to customer care where. Last point there, but because I'm going to use your words, this is your customer voice, right? That's your customer conversations. There's so much wealth and richness in this.
So if you look at what happened with social media in general and with digital even more broad, is all of a sudden the consumer has a voice they did not have before. You could make a phone call by yourself somewhere in a dark room and talk to a customer care department who could treat you well, who could not treat you well, nobody would know. Now you can evangelize how much you hate something online. And if there is other people who feel the same, you will very quickly create a little bit of a movement there. And companies are very well aware of that. That's the negative. The positive, however, is that brands have realized that loyal consumers, as they call them, like brand lovers, will buy more than any other consumer. And one of those brands, take Harley Davidson, your consumers tattoo your brand logo on their arm. Now, I've never seen somebody with Kleenex on their arm, but the passion is there. Like how Kleenex will be thinking exactly the same way. How can I delight my consumers by not waiting until they call me that something is wrong, but how can I proactively, and you say like, sure, in low engagement brands, it doesn't work. Now, I learned something when I worked for the likes of P&G. When you sell toilet paper, there is only one KPI, and that is the poke-through factor.
What's that?
Whoa. The pull-through factor.
When you use toilet paper, what is the worst thing that can happen?
Okay.
You poke through. That's the difference between...
We may cut this in the editing. Please go ahead.
So what they catered for was double quilted, soft, big, luxurious toilet paper where that would not happen. And I was thinking very proactively because they got so many complaints about people saying I was using the toilet paper and the only thing I wanted it to do was its job, and it didn't. So they listened, and they then made a product that did the job, and they commanded a premium for it. Now, if you extrapolate this across every brand, what consumers really want is, on one hand, is operational efficiency. When I call a consumer care line, I don't want to be told, you are number 35 in the queue, there are 47 minutes estimated wait time, and then you get bad music. And then when you finally get to talk to somebody, the line gets broken and they didn't even take your number and you have to do the whole thing again. So they say we want to have this 24/7. We also want to have this in a different way. We want to have much more self-service things where we have FAQ guides. So that's the operational thing. I want it to be accessible through all channels. I want a phone number, I want a chat, I want an app. I just want it to work in any way I can think of. The other thing that consumers say is, I want it to be personalized, I want it to be empathic, and I want it to, and this is the one that always stuck with me, I want it to be proactive. Yeah. Why don't you call me when things are going great and say like, hey, I saw you bought this. How's it going? Did you like it? We've just found we came up with another flavor, or we had another idea of how you can use this. Or other consumers, they really use it like this. And people are really open to that. They would effectively say, wouldn't it be nice if the company took the initiative to offer me products that were either more affordable if they saw I had an affordability issue, more premium if they saw I was more affluent, more tailored to my life situation. So for example, wouldn't it be nice, like, congratulations, you just had a baby. From now on, did you know we have a baby channel that we can add to your package? And we can take away the sports channel because you won't sleep anyway. So
you just made me think about something, Yeah. I wonder if sometimes, it's probably true, right? But sometimes brands, they don't do proactive care because they're thinking about cost to serve. They're thinking about the cost of the interaction. So calls are obvious, right? But to know you've got software as a service, email and notification and messaging tools as well, that you get charged by the interaction. So if you get charged with the interaction, I'm not going to send you proactive stuff. You know what I mean? And I wonder if that's like a broader kind of like theme that.
I have an example. It's not consumer product, but it's a service like my gym, right? I'm going to this gym since I came to London. It's been 9 years now. And the last years they launched the app, a simple app, nothing fancy, but it has the basic functionality. I can book a class, I like yoga, let's say, in Pilates, and I can be added to the waiting list. And when I've added on the waiting list, I know what's my waiting list number. I'm 7th in the line or 6th, and then I'm into the class. So recently they sent the communications back in June. They say we're going to change the app look and feel. They launched the new app and it's really buzzy, vibrant. It looks fantastic, right? It looks, sometimes I didn't even know how to start using it. But it lacked the main functionality, which was the waiting list number. If I want to book into different clubs, because I can join 3-4 different gyms at the city, for example, through my membership, I wouldn't be able to see that. What they did though, they sent us an email, and maybe it was like every week or every couple of weeks, which didn't bother me. That's why I don't even remember it. But I remember the message in saying, we listen to your feedback. We are working on adding the functionality 1, 2, which is waiting list, plus be able to see multiple clubs, the capacity per hour for the gym. If it's full, what time will you like to go? And they sent that communication, and then they launched that. They got an email out and say, by the way, this is what we did. Now on your app, you have this functionality, plus this is our roadmap. For me, that was fantastic. This came like 4 days ago, because you criticize me that I am I'm overexcited about things. But for me, that was fantastic. Proactive communication, listen to the customer, added basic functionality. I didn't care about the UX, because I care about if I'm going to my gym class in the morning.
And you're like gold, that's your gold tier, right?
It's not even a tier. He keeps talking about my tier. Stop doing it's not even a tier. It's like a basic membership, and I like doing my classes in the morning. Oh. But when I wake up, I want to see, am I in the class or I can go back to snooze? Because it's like 6:15 my class or 6:45. Am I in the class? Do I have a message? Do I have a communication? It changed my life. No? Am I only excited?
I give you that. And I'll give you that one. It's good, and it's for everyone. I like that bit.
Yeah, it's for everyone, and everybody have the communication. Okay. It's okay. I don't get the buzz from you guys. It's okay.
It's wonderful when you get it right. It's also incredibly complicated to do this at scale. So in defense of the companies who produce and manufacture brands, you can't make everybody happy all the time. What you can do, though, is make people feel that every time you interact with them, you listen, and you are open. So you don't hide things. Like yes, we acknowledge there is something not working. We are working on it. We're not just saying this as a token getaway. We're literally showing you what we are about to do, which the steps are, which we're taking to. And people will give a brand a lot of leeway if they feel that you are being genuine and honest with them. Every time a brand tried to swipe it under the carpet, pretending nothing happened, it had a backlash. If you do the opposite, consumers were actually very, very comprehensive.
Transparency, right? You talk about transparency. That's the easiest thing. Okay. Didier, what do we like to do in this podcast? We like to end with one question for each guest that we have. And that question is, what's the best, most delightful experience you've had recently with a brand, with a company?
Ooh, this wasn't recently, but that makes it no less special. And that was a sportswear brand called Columbia. I was in Chicago at the time, and we're talking about a good decade ago. I went to Macy's. I saw a beautiful premium fleece from Columbia. I bought it, flew back through London. The zipper broke. So I contacted Macy's, who say, I'm really sorry, there's nothing we can do. So I felt a little bit frustrated, because typically the retailer will solve it. So I just wanted to, I'm going to be honest, I just wanted to vent. I was angry and I wanted to go on the website. I went to Columbia, I contacted them, and they just said, you know what just happened? And they just typed the whole story. And I said, I expected more from this brand. Macy's left me in the cold. Within 30 minutes, I get an email from Columbia just saying, we're really sorry this happened to you. What is the size of the fleece? And I give the size and just said, sit back. And 2 days later, they send me the same fleece. I was in London. I bought it in Macy's in Chicago. They sent me the same fleece plus one extra. Ever since, I have never been more loyal to a brand than this, because right? I know almost it's the fact that it happened 10 years ago. Now people would say, oh, if we do something like this, it will go viral. It happened 10 years ago. It was across continents. This consistency of customer service. They believed in their brand so much. The only thing they asked of me was, can you send us the broken one? We can't fix it, but we just want to get rid of it. So I did, which was a small thing to do, to get 2 new ones. And
That's wonderful.
still, it's not recent, but I do find it still quite impressive.
It is impressive. It is
That
impressive.
was a good story. I can't tell that story at all. Mine is a lot simpler and way less impressive. Bought lots of different furniture recently, got a little garden studio in the back. Had to return 3 out of 9 products. Went to the furniture store, went to customer service, didn't have my receipt. Busted. At least I thought so. That was it. Nope. Don't you worry about it. Which day did you do it? Okay, X day. Okay, roughly how much is the cost of the total? I said, well, pull up my bank, looked at the total, and said, hey, XYZ. I said, okay, yeah, I find you here. Is it the XYZ and the XYZ and the XYZ? He said, yeah, that's right. Good, no worries. Returned it. Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah.
That never happens.
I know. I was like that every time now.
All right.
Furniture from you guys.
Okay, I think I'm going to end the podcast with these 2 stories. Let's just leave it on a high. Didier, you need to come back in a few months just to have more stories, right? It's just to say more stories.
You're the best.
Please. No?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I was just thinking like, oh, there's so much more.
I know, right? We just need a sequel, like episode 2, episode 3, episode 4. Well, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And thanks everybody for being here with us at Amazon Studios.